You know much about jazz?
I know a bit about jazz. I
You
like
like
jazz.
jazz?
I do like jazz.
I really like jazz. Do you know? You like you know? I like jazz. I like jazz.
I think you do like jazz.
Well, just getting messages about getting out my learner's permit. I've only got 11 hours. I only get 120. Gonna add a skull
Can't you
emoji
just
to
fucking
this,
write it down in the app? Be like, yes, I have done 100 hours. In fact,
and have to like AFK it. AFK just like let it run
yeah.
hours. I don't know. Probably it's fine. Like one of my friends said he only had like 30 something hours actually driven in a
And you
car.
can go get the P plates.
I
Or do you
probably
mean
should.
like he AFK'd the thing?
He AFK'd the app, kind of like he was like I started the app like as I was when I started walking out of the house,
Really? Yeah.
and he says like I probably only have
So it's
about like 30 hours of actual
like what do you call it? Inflated numbers. Yeah, there you go.
yeah, that's yeah. Um, should I get on that? I don't know. Would I? I
I mean,
don't
as
know.
long as you can
Why
drive
not?
well,
Yeah. Just
you
wanna
drive
yeah.
good. I mean, I don't know how many hours I've driven, but I drove a bit. Then
Is this
now I
back to exposing
drive.
the Indonesian driving system? Is it
The testing system, which is
testing system?
kind
There
of
we go.
ass. And the thing is like the test is kind of hard. Most people fail anyway, so they have to retake the test like three times. So what I did, I just paid for the one timers, and yeah, I got it. But then I drive okay, pretty sure. I mean, I drove here and back from my hometown like 5 times already.
Hmm.
That's like 3 hours each in the highway.
Oh
Yeah,
damn. Okay.
I'm still alive. You get me? So,
That's like 30
and
hours.
many other people. I guess it would be probably 30 hours or more, but I've driven more. That means because in the normal streets as well.
Hmm.
Many people drive less.
Yes.
The
I
very
am just like I am building my skills. And my
yeah.
mum
So
is
you
the
should probably
very
drive more.
type of I will supervise you because I am legally forced to do so, but I'm
Supposed to
also
do.
like I'm very scared for my life. And completely understandable like the
She
amount
don't
of
like to
times I
drive.
don't brake fast enough. Or
Oh,
as in like
you're a late breaker.
I don't brake early enough. That's the right word.
Yes.
Um
It was
and I
better
give her a little
better
mini heart
early than
attack. Yeah.
yeah.
Um
Like if you're early, a bit away, but if you're late, you crash.
but yes, I am quite a bit far from my P's, so I am still learning driving,
A easy
getting
way
my
to
hours up.
take to up your hours is just like every time your mom needs to go somewhere, you'd be like, "Yeah, I'll drive,"
On
and she
it,
gets a heart attack every.
the what I've been doing is just like after dinner, 1 hour drive.
Okay.
Um,
1 hour.
but I'm 1/12 of the way there, and yeah, I'm getting there. Now, wouldn't it be
Nice.
nice to get in a car and listen to some jazz?
That would be nice.
Welcome back to our second episode of Time Coda, our second official
Doing this for real.
episode of Time Coda, where let's talk about some jazz. I didn't tell Dio we started recording. We just finished recording our latest review of Uncharted on the Unholy Trinity. Go
Hold up.
subscribe there, like and subscribe. Make sure you don't miss a single
Fuck, I'm
episode. Looking
orange.
very orange right now. I love that. I'll
I'm gonna
here.
turn
Hold
it
on.
off.
I'll match your vibe. It's a
You're
little
just
bit
more
more.
white now.
Am I more white? Okay, I'll go turn off my main light.
Going for the Batman vibes.
Is this a
Damn,
little more orangey?
this
Nah,
light
kind of not really.
is just orange.
Oh, I
Orange,
had.
that's orange.
Here, let me see if this helps turn on the make me more orange. Do I look more orange now?
It just darkened it. Okay,
Darker?
but that's good.
What I did was I turned on night shift on my fucking laptop screen.
Alright.
So
Do
I
you think
look
that
more
will work
orange,
on your
and you look like double orange because of the color
yeah.
shift. But yeah, you know, the night shift where it turns off the blue light, so you look.
Yeah,
But I had that on top of you already being orange, so you were like fucking red.
I do look red. I kind of want to turn this off.
Red hot.
Dark red,
Oh.
red. I guess you can see my face.
Mm.
But because we're starting and without my knowledge, I was about to get dinner. But can I eat while doing this?
Go ahead. The best type of podcast. You go get your dinner, and I'll keep the
Yum yum.
listeners engaged for a bit. I'll go over like the.
Right.
I don't want to go over any information when you're not here. Go get your dinner. Go get your dinner. You
You can
can eat.
cut this so you can entertain the audience somehow. I'll be back in a minute.
I will play some jazz, and you'll get like a few seconds of this. Actually, I'm like in a new room upstairs. I moved my desk. I moved my setup from downstairs to upstairs, so I actually need to be quiet now. Wow, look at Dio working over there in the background. Oh, he bent over. Wow. Oh, he bent over again. What the fuck am I saying? But you have to be quiet now because I'm actually upstairs, and like people are sleeping, and it's like 10 p.m. and that's how early my family sleeps. Normally, I would sleep earlier. I work morning shifts now, so I have to wake up at 4:30, and those days I have to wake up at 8 p. I have to sleep at 8 p.m. Uh, honestly, been fine. How's your life been? Oh, really? That's nice. Good to hear, man. Good to hear. I don't. Oh my god, look at Dio's swagger walking his way across the screen. What's up, bro? How's life? Can you hear me? How's life? I'll take that as a no. Um, yes. Talking about jazz today, one of the few topics I have understanding in because I listen to quite a bit of jazz. I mean, I like jazz. Jazz is pretty great, I would say. I listen to a lot of jazz. Quite a bit, much more than other genres. Like, okay, the genres I listen to the most, probably jazz, and then EDM follows. And then some, like, the my third most listened genre, other than those two, would probably be like, how do you describe this? Like indie, poppy, bluesy, soulsy, rocky, jazzy. Literally, okay, it's literally basically only two bands, the Cat Empire, and uh, Bear Jams. I really like their music a lot. Oh, reggae as well. Reggae is like the big one with them. But I just love their sound. But so that's the music I listen to. But jazz be probably the one I listen to the most, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And I do plan that in another episode down the line, if we get to one, that we talk about some specific jazz. And I think as just like a precursor for that episode, if it ever happens, I would like to talk about what subgenre of jazz would I like to talk about. Smooth jazz would be a good branch to talk about from our previous episodes, talking about city pop to talking about jazz. Let me just change the OBS croppings a bit. And subgenres of jazz, huh? I mean, What other subgenres of jazz are there? Fusion jazz, actually, yes. Probably have to talk about fusion jazz at some point. That's like the thing that will definitely tie between me and Dio's areas of expertise. I mean, we genuinely could get the legendary Armag to come on this show to talk about fusion jazz, just so that he could talk about Jimi Hendrix. Did you catch any of what I was saying towards the end there?
No, I did not.
I was considering possibilities
And
for.
I think it's good.
Oh yeah, how's dinner?
Ah, I'm having a Chinese dinner. I think I got
Oh,
me General Tso fried chicken from the local Chinese place, and some what's this? Stir fried broccoli that I made. What did you say before that? I missed it.
give me a few seconds. I will text my friend and then put my phone on Do Not Disturb.
Ah, yes.
Do some funky dance moves while I quickly wrap this up.
Right.
This is a
I'll be
professional
doing
podcast.
the munching chewing
Oh,
dance.
yes.
Mmm. So it's like dinner.
Phone gone. Okay, we're safe. So, I was
Yeah.
considering if for the next episode of Time Coda, we do like a combination one because you know about city pop, I know about jazz.
Are you?
Let's talk about fusion
Mm-hmm.
jazz or like smooth jazz,
We should talk about that.
and that will combine both our activities. And perhaps, just perhaps, we could bring on a special
Having a
guest
guess?
who has perhaps a bit of knowledge about rock.
Who's this rock individual?
Well, only
Is
one
it
way
a
to
spoiler?
find out. Stay subscribed.
All right, all right.
I just realized I changed like the positions of shit on OBS, and now it's off center. Oh god, what are my keybinds? Yep. Yeah. Yep. Cool. That's. Oh no, it's all falling apart. No, it's good enough. That's good enough. I'm sticking with that. It's good enough. All right. Shall we talk about some jazz?
You're done lighting.
Oh. Now it's funny you do that
And
lighting
have a good
because it's very spooky. And what do I know about jazz? I
Mhm.
haven't done the research for this, and I really should have. But jazz started off. Well, it really kind of took on a lot of cultural, like influences, particularly from African American communities, in particularly places like New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans, I say the lighting before was kind of fitting because it was spooky, and New Orleans is like voodoo central, isn't it?
Oh, that is true.
But yeah, jazz, 19th, late 19th, early 20th century. Started off as like blues music and ragtime, and if you've watched The Unholy Trinity, our special review of a film called Moraine's Black Bottom, starring the legendary Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace. His final performance, what's like the full title of that? His final live performance, movie performance, or just
What?
final performance in general. I forgot exactly. But there
Final.
was like a word. I'm trying to get this right because I don't want to like be wrong about it, but yeah, it was a great film, but it particularly was great. I liked it a lot because blues music is kind of lit. I don't know if you've
Really?
ever listened to blues music. It's kind of like, ooh,
It's
if
all
you ever
blue and shit.
improvise over a blues scale, yes. Um, but yeah, um, I mean, we just talked about a famous blues singer, Moraine. Uh, really, a lot of jazz, really, and something I would like to hit home as well with like an overarching theme in this episode of Time Coda. It's like black musicianship. It's really was a lot of. It started off with black musicians, and black musicians tended to be quite very, very, very popular in the jazz genre. And one of
You know
the
what?
messages of Moraine's Black Bottom, and I'll wrap this up quickly so you can talk, was that white musicians don't
Mm,
tend to have that same soul of a black musician, which was
they got no
it's not
rhythm.
like true for all white musicians, obviously, but it is like talking about like the racial divide and how jazz kind of was a place for black musicians to kind of pop through in a time of prejudice. But
Yeah,
sorry, I interrupted you. You're saying?
also adding on to that is uh, if you, I guess, trace back the origins of many black music, uh, I mean, in Africa itself,
Yeah,
tribes are very, rhythmical and musical
very
in their
very
nature,
rhythmical. Mm.
and that definitely comes over to African Americans as well, and
Yes,
how they create their music.
there is a lot of
But
rhythm, a lot of, and I feel like from what I know, and this again, I would like to specify if it wasn't clear in the first, like, well, I guess 2 episodes of Time Code. This is the second episode. I'm including the pilot. We
mm,
exclude the numbers, but um, we're not experts in any of this. We're just like having a conversation.
we're just
So
fans,
just friends talking about music because that's what we enjoy doing.
music
Um,
fans.
exactly. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, African music, uh, in like tribes and in sort of like these more un like populated areas in Africa, the, the music there, without like the influence of white people coming in and colonizing the
Traditional
place,
African music.
traditional African music. How was that not the first word to come to my head?
No,
Traditional African music. I don't feel
yeah,
like there's a lot of harmony, is there? It's not a lot because when you distance in a lot of places that are traditional ethnical music that is not fucking white 16th century music theory. Um,
yeah.
you get multi-tonality, uh, like what's it called? Microtonality. Um,
Yeah,
you, a lot more rhythm, a lot more odd time signatures. Because that's just how what is perceived as natural to us, being 4/4 time, when for another country in another time would probably have like 7/8, for example, being like the most common time signature because that's just what they're used to from
yeah,
yeah. Um, and when it comes to Africa, particularly, such a big continent where
definitely.
music ideas develop, um, and it's very rhythmic. We hear a lot of, um, it's not so much an emphasis on melody and harmony, from what I know. Which is to say, I
Well,
don't know
chanting,
very much. I know fuck all, honestly.
pretty sure like chanting is a big part of it.
Yes,
But there's a bit of
I'll take your word
melodical.
for it. If anyone wants to like actually inform us, because Lord
Yeah.
knows I haven't done the research, and like I'm looking at this one compared to City Pop episode
I
number
mean,
one.
musical historians, and
Musical
specifically
historians
like
can be better,
ethnic music.
much better sources. Which I just want to record us having a conversation podcast. I feel like episode one after the episode 0 was a bad representation of this podcast, because you actually know about city pop a lot.
No.
And
Well, plus we had that guide.
yeah,
Just
we had that guide. But I came in like with the expectation that it was going to be a ton of tangents. And hopefully this one is going to be a ton of tangents, which is what Time Coda was, what I envisioned it to be. But
had a bunch of tangents.
honestly, I loved the first episode though. Still, the city pop episode, I learned so much. It was great.
You know what? Sometimes we have, very informational episodes. Sometimes we have fun episodes like this.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
what we're gonna get on now, from these African tribes, traditional African music, and then obviously white colonists, blah blah
You're talking
blah.
about, what?
We don't talk about. I don't want to talk about the history too much because it's nothing you haven't heard before, and it's all horrible and really shouldn't have happened. But comes to America, and then we get Afro Americans bringing their music, and suddenly we have this wonderful new music, blues music, obviously. It's very bluesy, very when people talk about they're in the blues, they're sad. It's kind of, from what I remember in Rainey's Black Bottom, but also doing like tiny bits of blues research, it was a way for like black people to kind of like have their own form of music, and they listening to this music is kind of like a way for them to like come together and like sympathize with each other over the struggles in this white society that they were being slaves as.
Yes, they were expressing their sorrows and
Yes.
struggle.
And through their music, through the lyrics, um, that's a lot of the content of blues music. Um, but the biggest things from blues music that I guess kind of transcended into jazz, you heard a lot of like the blues scale being the main thing that like everyone that you probably knows a little bit
Pentatonic
about.
scale.
Yes, getting that sort of like that really nice tone to a song that has become a classic in jazz for, well, ever since its start, I guess. And then ragtime, which I know quite a bit less about. Its cardinal trait is its syncopated or ragged rhythm. So again, rhythmic. And even I know this about Scott Joplin, ragtime composer. Most people have probably at least heard of Scott Joplin's The Entertainer. And you hear a lot of ragtime music, especially just played on the piano. It was a lot of dance music, really, in around 1910s, 1920s. People liking some new music, and they found that ragtime was pretty good. Was pretty nice
I always
genre.
associate like ragtime with like westerns and cowboy,
That is true.
stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, from blues, you get the rhythms, you get the harmonies and the tones and the melodies. From ragtime, you get that rhythm, you get that feel, really, because a lot of ragtime, you really hear how jazz sort of came to be a thing. Then, lo and behold, you get to like the 1920s, I guess. 1910s, 1920s. It was a lot of quite a bit of fair bit of places. I think mainly United States was like the main thing, but I'm also reading here French quadrilles. What's a quadrille? It's like 4 to 6 people dancing.
Okay.
So that's it, spread around the world basically. I think the earliest examples of jazz comes from New Orleans jazz in the 1910s. You hear like the Dixieland songs, Dixieland music, New Orleans.
How did they say it? New Orleans.
New
New
Orleans, Orleans. Pronunciation. Norlands.
Orleans.
Locals will tell you that's not the case. New Orleans is also off the mark. It is New Orleans.
All right. In
Some
New
even
Orleans.
say with 4 syllables. New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans jazz, people. You hear a lot of New Orleans jazz on like do you guys know George Collier? The music
I
clips
think so.
channel. A lot of there's this one particular clarinet player, and I forgot what her name is. Who gets on it all the time for basically having a fucking ventilator in her lungs, being able to hold long notes. Her name is Dorian Ketchens, and I do believe she is from New Orleans. I'll check that real quick. Dorian Ketchens, New Orleans. And you can tell when you see the performance that they look at New Orleans because it looks very much like a New Orleans street. This on the sidewalk, playing Dixieland music. Honestly, I love Dixieland, New Orleans jazz. Such a vibe. But yeah, so jazz kind of started from there. With a lot of this, jazz developed into so many subgenres that it's really hard to really go in depth on anything other than just like give a brief history about jazz. Because we've already started off, we're not even. I would say we haven't even really gotten to. Okay, we have gotten to jazz. That's New Orleans jazz. But then we've only touched on 3 genres, and it's only the first genre of jazz already. And then we've already had to go over like 3 and kind of 4 genres of jazz of music.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I mean, even city pop is like a far removed cousin genre.
Exactly.
Of jazz.
It's like,
so
a second cousin. Pretty much, it's a
if
second cousin from the jazz.
Jazz in a whole umbrella.
Jazz is just a massive tree.
Pretty big.
And city pop is like a small tree that grew next to it. It's on a small tree that grew next to it. Yeah. But yeah, I think, and then from that point on, early 2010s, 1920s, we get the start of jazz. Really, it was this point that the sort of like jazz classics of like swing you got from blues and ragtime, which I completely forgot to mention. How did I forget about talking about swing? Like the syncopated rhythm, da 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 da, swing, blues, complex chords, get some call and response going on, especially in New Orleans jazz, and improvisation as well. Another big thing about jazz, improvisation. At this point, jazz has reached its definition stage, 1920s. Which has been called the Jazz Age.
Yeah. It's becoming the mainstream, is it? At that time.
It did become like the popular music of that time, yeah. I've got a really itchy ear for some reason, so if you see me itching my ear, that's why.
Alright.
But yeah.
It has evolved quite away from, just being black music. Where it'll only be played in black communities into becoming the popular thing, the popular music of that time for everyone.
Well, at this time, however, we get to about the 1930s, and as we all know, Great Depression.
Great.
As a result of the Great Depression, and one might think, well, music, development of music might become less because it might be hard to like get radios or CDs or vinyls and like at the time and tape.
I mean, people are struggling to
At the
eat,
time,
man.
people struggling to see how do they have time for
So
music.
like, yeah,
When you get performing artists that go around performing, and even in the 1930s when things are starting to rebound back up and you could get radio back up again and that like full swing, pun intended, with like radio performances and all that, jazz reached a new era, which I actually went over in a research project for uni. The swing era, swing music,
all right.
swing jazz, big bands, big brass sections, conductor at the front, soloists, tons of soloists, and then 1930s, designed to make people dance. It was a way for people to forget about the sorrows. So compared to like the blues, where people were singing about their sorrows and sharing and sympathizing with each other, it was a way for not just black people but for everyone to sort of momentarily in that moment listening to the music, they can just dance their sorrows away. That was swing music in the 1930s during the Great Depression. If swing cannot go hand in hand without names such as Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, Count Basie, so many of these famous artists, these legends of jazz, that have been influential for so long, pretty much, and led this new era that really exploded jazz.
A lot of those names are name dropped in a Stevie Wonder song.
Oh yes, I haven't actually listened to that, but I've heard of it.
It's a Stevie's tribute to that era, I guess.
Which was a very nice era. Very good era. But yeah, we have that. Then obviously skip forward another 10 years because swing era did have quite a long reign until about 1939. I'm sure you know what happens at this stage. World War II. And swing bands still were a thing. They didn't like just stop because of the war, but people going off to war. Eventually they got bands to go to war as well to play for the regiments and the army serving overseas. Famously, Glenn Miller supposedly disappeared over the English Channel, and conspiracy theories that he actually died in a brothel or something like that. I don't know.
At least it's better than the theory that Elvis died eating a burger while shooting. He died on top of a toilet.
Did he?
Yes. But the theory was he on top of the toilet while eating a burger. But people have been debunking that. And they're just saying, he died on the toilet.
Yeah,
but he was not eating it. That's the point of argument.
Yeah, this is a big tangent, by the way. Have you heard of the $100 hamburger?
No.
It is not an actual hamburger. It is a term used in general aviation. It is the excuse to charter a plane and then use the excuse to go to a burger place and get a burger from that place after flying your plane to keep your air hours up.
Okay.
Famously, Elvis did this. Elvis and his friends went to a place
I've heard of
called,
it. Yeah.
it's the Fool's Gold Loaf. Was a Colorado Mine Company was the name of the restaurant. The Fool's Gold Loaf is basically an entire loaf of bread. Like you see, like one of those, like a Minecraft bread, kind of looking thing. Cut in half, hollowed out, right. And then inside, pounds of bacon, peanut butter, jelly, banana. I think that's it. No banana. Well, you get the idea. It's like a PB&J
PB&J
with bacon.
bacon,
And then the entire thing is like baked in the margarine and oil.
deep fried.
One of those is like 4 days worth of food. Elvis and his friends purchased 30 of them to eat on the plane. And then they flew off again. But yeah, $100
Damn,
hamburger.
amazing Elvis stories.
Yes.
Is that a myth though? Or is
No,
it,
it's an actual thing. It is an actual thing. I think.
dude,
I
for
will
real?
check that.
Probably. Could be just like, people's story. But it's funny story.
Yes.
And that adds to the conspiracy that he died while eating a burger.
Hmm.
Because he likes his burgers and PB&Js. But it's just funny. It's funny in itself that Elvis died while shitting.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought Elvis was famous for singing. No, he died. He died. Well,
He's famous
it's the way he died.
for his
I mean,
lash.
in general, he just died because people thinks he has like a. He well, not that he thinks he just had an incredibly large, calorie intake. Yeah.
Well, I think he was just old and he has health problems and he was shitting. So
Okay, fair enough.
it was time. I think that was the circumstance to that death.
Quote, according to the life and cuisine of Elvis Presley, Presley and his friends took his private jet from Graceland, purchased 30 of the sandwiches, and spent 2 hours eating them.
Damn, there's a lot of PB&Js.
Yes. Um, where,
That
where
was
did
our
we come
Elvis
from?
tangent.
Yes, Elvis tangent. We were talking
There's someone
about
died in the
yes,
English
because
channel.
Glenn Miller supposedly disappeared over the English Channel after on a flight. We don't know how he died. Some people say he probably died in a brothel. He might have died in a brothel. But we don't
What
know
he
that for
did
sure.
though,
He was dead. He was how old was he when he died? He was like 30 or 40. He wasn't
but why
old
would he die in a brothel?
because it was like a stroke or something. I don't know. Let me see.
He
Glenn
looted too much.
Miller, one of my favorite trombonists. His music, his swing music was great. If you don't know In the Mood, just generally, what the fuck are you doing? Let's see. Disappearance, conspiracy theories, heart attack in a brothel.
He just nutted too hard, man.
Fuck
was
you, man. Go away, man.
I mean, how else is he gonna get a heart attack?
got too much, got a little more than he could handle.
Exactly.
Heart attack in a brothel.
He was just too excited, man.
That's just someone taking the piss out of the guy who died like 100 years ago. I was taking the cum and I'm
Crazy.
gonna stop talking.
Oh, PCA.
Yeah. I'm gonna shut up now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna talk about some jazz. Fucking Glenn Miller, amazing. Benny Goodman, revolutionary. And who cannot forget about fucking what's Duke Ellington, one of the most influential swing artists of all time. Did amazing stuff for jazz and swing in general, revolutionizing what the sound of the music actually is, what the sound of the genre actually is. I mean, Ellington called his music American music rather than jazz.
Real American music.
Real American music.
Well, I mean, I guess there's already a definition of jazz at the time. Was there?
Yeah. Yeah, jazz was already established at this time. Like, for example, Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong in the 1920s was already featured as a soloist on trumpet for that time. So Armstrong was involved in the early days of jazz.
Big name.
Exactly, yeah. Um, I mean, there's a lot of also like to point out some other like white musicians before the era of swing, sort of like 1920s. Paul Whiteman, uh, and there's another guy's I forgot his name. But he hired a bunch of really famous people like Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, Jack Teagarden, etc., to join his Ben Pollack, uh, another person who hired a lot of people who were like sort of hidden gems, and those hidden gems turned out to be some of the greatest swing artists of all time.
He polished up them diamonds.
Absolutely. Um, but yeah, swing music at this time: Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Benny Goodman, uh, Harry James, and Glenn Miller. Some of these people really influenced swing music of that time. And a lot of these people, some of these people are white: Benny Goodman, Harry James,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also part of, so mainly here Benny Goodman, because Benny Goodman was, I believe, like the first white musician, or at least one of the first white musicians in America at that time, to hire black musicians in his band, and not just like for the sake of hiring black musicians, but to feature them and to like give them a spotlight, proving to the world in a time when like racism was like all the rage that yes, white people and black people can coexist, and we can even write bangers together.
They're not so different.
Not so
We're
different
not so
at
different, you
all.
and I.
Have you ever heard of the
Uh-huh.
name Charlie Christian?
I
I'm asking a
might
guitarist.
vaguely,
Vaguely?
but I'm not
Charlie
familiar.
Christian
Yeah.
was a black guitarist, was the first person to bring jazz electric guitar to the world. And Benny Goodman hired him as a featured artist. People like
Ah.
Teddy Wilson as well, and Lionel Hampton. They joined Benny Goodman's groups as well as featured artists. Obviously, the big artists like Duke Ellington and Count Basie, they're really in the swing era. They're really in charge of creating characteristic sounds. Not to say that any of the other people did. Glenn Miller had his own characteristic sound. Benny Goodman, all of these people were so influential. But I think when it comes to like um, overall jazz influence, you have to look to people like Duke Ellington.
For sure.
I mean, even the United States in, I forget which era. I forget if it was like in the later eras, maybe like 50s, 60s. They had this like jazz like outsource, no, getting Duke Ellington's bands basically and sponsoring them to go perform in different countries and to spread jazz.
Oh, I think I've heard of that program they did.
Adam Neely did a video on it, so go watch Adam
Yeah,
Neely's
yeah.
video on it. Not us talking about it, but yeah,
He actually researched.
government recognized jazz, government sponsored jazz
Yeah.
promotion.
It was basically to spread, I guess, American culture
Spread American
to the
culture,
world.
American mainly politics and
Music.
ideology. I think at the end of it, right? Because that was like the time of like Cold War-ish, maybe the
Yeah,
U.S.
they don't want
U.S.
the
fight against socialism.
filthy communists to come over
Yeah,
and
yeah,
influence them with their devilish ideologies. So instead, yeah, here, have some nice jazz.
yeah.
See, you jazz, don't be communist.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Okay, this is a bit of a
that's right.
this is a really weird side tangent. I think the inside of my ear might be bleeding.
But what you do to your ear, man?
Scratch it.
Did you just like scratch it too deep.
Yeah.
Probably
So
need to
that's fun.
stop doing
I'm gonna
that.
deal with that later. Ahem. Oh, and some earwax just fell out of my right ear.
Yummy. Do you clean your ears regularly? Some
Not
people don't.
enough. Not regularly enough.
Some people like are firmly against it. Actually, have you heard people like that?
Mm, no, I can't say I have. That sounds disgusting.
Well, it's like I think there's a bit of science backing it up, but like people say, the wax is naturally there to
Okay,
be
yeah, yeah.
there.
So the wax is naturally supposed to be there until it
Hmm.
builds up and becomes an issue.
Yeah,
For me, it doesn't
and
really
that's the
build up
thing.
into an issue anymore. It did when I was a kid and maybe like a few months ago. I'm not sure about now. It doesn't seem to be. But wax is supposed to naturally fall out of your ears once it gets too hard and too much.
But that's disgusting.
Yes.
So like, is it better to prevent that before that happens, and you're just hanging out with someone, and then a bit of wax falls off your ear?
Hmm. Think about it. Think about it,
Maybe
people.
it is. Yeah,
But yeah. Wow. How long
earwax
have?
people.
Why am I asking you? I'm so used to asking you how long we've been recording for. Oh my god, 46 minutes, and
Yeah.
we've only been through what the first 40
Well, I
years of
mean,
jazz.
for the first 5 to 10 minutes, I was cooking up, not
Oh
cooking up. I
yeah,
was
and
preparing
then
dinner, so it's fine.
this was also me recording what we were talking about before.
Ah, all right.
Yes, so that's fun.
So probably like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
It's good.
Um. But yeah.
What did you say?
Well, I was gonna say, post-war then. So
Yeah,
this was like
yeah,
Great Depression, World War Two era, swing music. Moving on from 1940s, people started to experiment again a bit more, and we get bebop. It's
hell
away
yeah.
from what people wanted to hear because even in the 1930s with swing music, that was still swing music was a deviation from popular music. It was something new that people
Mm,
weren't used to, but fell in love with, uh, and became really
right.
popular in the 1930s. Um, Bebop is like the shift away from popular music that purely appealed to the audience, and instead was more written for the individual, the musician, to challenge them. They wanted to write some more. They wanted to be challenged basically, and you can hear in like the music. It does sound harder to play. It's a lot faster as well. A lot more runs. Very energetic, and improvisation lines get very uh what's the word? The improvisation gets very
Technical.
influential, technical. Um, but I'm thinking more along the lines of like it was very standout, something that the rest of history would build upon, and I'll just stick with that
Mm,
for jazz playing. Bebop improvisation was kind of where it really kicked off into again another way that we understand jazz now today, where people like Charlie Parker, um, Coltrane to extent, but it was more Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis. Um, these kind of people really took bebop to the next level. Miles Davis more so in the 60s or 70s, but so in
mm.
40s you'd have Charlie Parker, you'd have Dizzy Gillespie. If I just do a quick research of bebop artists, because I'm not too familiar on bebop artists. Um, uh, yeah, I think Dexter Gordon, of course. How could I forget Dexter Gordon? Clifford Brown, Bud Powell, Thelonious Monk.
Yeah.
We mentioned before Charlie Christian, Sonny Rollins, Fats Navarro, Art Blakey, Kenny Clark. Some of these people uh, having this really, really influential bebop style. And if you listen to any pop, it's comparing swing to bebop from like the short time span that it took really for this new genre to develop. It's really quite a drastic change for a short time. Um,
Mm.
it's just when this new generation of jazz artists really experimenting with the how creative they could get with jazz and taking it beyond the commercialized success of swing music.
Is they would they be more like taking jazz to be more daring and like you know
Yes,
the next step?
absolutely.
I guess more
Taking to the next
technical, more
step,
challenging.
more challenging music. Um, and I guess jazz has always been something that is very skillful music. Bebop was really when creativity and skill sort of met its like a new climax together.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said before, Miles Davis, right? But at the time, like the earliest bebop artists, they really hit their stride about 60s and 70s playing bebop, and it did have success for decades as like the most popular jazz music of the time.
Mm.
Around the same time as well, like a little bit afterwards, cool jazz became a thing where people, I guess, counteracting this really fast new bebop, this new energetic bebop, uh, started playing jazz that was a bit more calm and smooth, uh,
Laid back.
laid back. Yeah, um, and there's a jazz standard I really like, "Stairway to the Stars," uh, which I
Mm.
believe is an example of slow, smooth jazz. No, actually, it's 1939, I believe. So not technically right, but I would I would count like the original recording of it as some sort of cool jazz. But I guess as a genre, cool jazz developed around like end of 1940s after bebop.
Mm.
Um, and then at this point, we've touched on like swing and bebop, blues, ragtime. Um,
Yeah.
from here on, jazz just kind of explodes. People all across the world, now that there's new radio and tape and ways that people can share this new music, and it
Good
goes
old fine.
everywhere, all across the world. Many different cultures get involved, many different countries, all trying to do their own thing and seeing what they like. Um,
Yeah.
we get a ton of jazz subgenres.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess one of the earliest ones that's worth talking about, modal jazz. Uh, basically using a musical scale to improvise and create music structure, alongside free jazz, which is exploring what if we didn't have a set time signature scale and we could just play all these things without conforming to any of these structures.
Yeah.
Um, and then obviously bebop is still like the main thing for a long time, but at the same time, and I can just like quickly talk about some of these, uh, where you get Latin jazz, uh, jazz fusion, which we might talk about in a future episode. Dixieland has a bit of a revival. Smooth jazz after fusion jazz. The introduction of like psychedelics into jazz, that comes alongside
Mm.
jazz fusion. And then there's a ton of modern stuff as well. People doing acid jazz, new jazz, jazz rap. You could go on
Yeah.
and on about all the different jazz
The
subgenres that there are.
90s, 2000s,
Hmm.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Like not their peak maybe, but like they started around that time.
Yeah.
Okay, they're big. Does bossa nova kind of count as a jazz subgenre?
Bossa Nova, I do believe does. If I can just check that for you real quick.
Because if I'm not
It's more of a
mistaken,
samba.
it's like gentrified samba music,
Yeah.
but Western people, or like it's from South America, like Brazil and whatnot. It
Yeah.
was
So
influenced a lot by the jazz of the time as well. Their local
Bossa
Latin
Nova.
music.
I'm just having a quick look. So Bossa Nova came around late 50s to early 1960s. Uh,
Yeah,
it would coincide with like jazz becoming more creative, a lot more creative, and people bringing in Latin jazz influences, and yeah, we get samba
yeah,
music, and I think Girl of Ipanema is like the classic, right?
it is the de facto bossa nova song.
Hydrate. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like it's a bossa jazz, I guess, or samba jazz.
mm,
Um, it does have its origins from samba and from jazz. I'm only like reading
yeah.
this like real quick and just like looking at it, but bossa nova is like the child of samba and jazz.
Seem, Seems to make sense.
It is. But I mean, I
That
find it
goes with
very
the
cool.
thing of jazz spreading all over the world, man. You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
different parts of the world create their own type of thing out of it.
Yep, exactly. Um, Jazz obviously being a more American thing, but Europeans also um, they
They
had a bit
quite
of
like it.
uh, stints with jazz. I don't think I know too many European jazz artists really. They were mostly the famous ones, were mostly only in America. Um,
Yeah. Well, the
but
internationally, I guess, renowned names.
exactly, yeah. Um, I did try this. I have explored some jazz from like different countries, mainly Australia. Uh, what's his
Yeah.
name? Kenneth Graham, I believe. Um, or Graham White. Graham White. Graham White. Um, Australian jazz artist did some swing actually. He was
Uh,
popular in the 30s, I believe. Oh, Graham Bell. Graham Bell. Uh, was part of the swing era. Uh,
mm,
and I listened to some of his music, and it was very good, very old sound. I could tell the just from like the recording quality. That sounds like
yeah.
analog. That sounds like tape. Um,
Well, I mean, it's 1930s tape, so it's
hmm.
extra shit.
Tape was a vinyl in 30s.
Oh, actually, yeah. I mean, tape recording, I think, maybe started in like the 50s.
Yeah,
So before that, it would be just straight to vinyl.
straight to vinyl. Um, so yeah, I mean, you with the it's just I love old
And
music.
the mics at the time,
Yeah, the mics
they're
at the
not
time were
good.
just they just look like gramophones. It's like it's how recording was done back in the day. You had a gramophone and you shouted into it, and it collects the sound waves, and the sound waves like push down on a
It etched the
wax
vinyl.
disc hard enough that
Yeah.
it etches something, and then when you put that on the gramophone to play it back again, it follows the grooves.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We've
but
come a
yeah,
long way in recording technology.
we have indeed. But I think this is as any other good time as just for me to talk about some of my personal favorite jazz artists because after these
Yeah.
historically famous ones, we get to an ambiguous era of jazz where it just all becomes very free. People are doing what they want to do. Um,
I think that's also because like uh in the pop scene in the mainstream, jazz was overthrown for a bit. Like
Yeah,
you could rock music.
you get the
So there
rock
was
side of
no
things.
mainstream sound everyone would follow
Yeah, and
unless
sort
I
of
guess there
around
is some.
like 70s and 80s, I guess, right?
I mean
Jazz,
rock
rock
or
60s.
jazz was still big, but like rock started to take over. I mean 50s Elvis
Yeah.
and the lot,
Okay, I see. I didn't know that. It's good to have someone that actually knows about rock because I don't. Um.
It was going to the rock age
Mm,
from I guess 50s onwards, and I guess jazz started to spread out and fizzle out from the mainstream, right?
we could talk about that in another episode if you want.
Yeah, we can probably have a rock episode to
Yeah,
be a sequel to this.
because I actually talking now. I feel like I'd be interested in learning about rock
We can, yeah, we can do that in the our special guest episode if that's
if that happens. If we want that to
yeah.
happen. But yeah,
I'm down.
I what was I gonna say? So favorite jazz. I want to ask actually. First of all, do you have any like favorite jazz artists? If you listen to any jazz at all.
Uh, well, I don't listen to much really, but like I like your what's his name? Fucking- What is his name? Wait, let me scroll through Girl's Spotify. Yeah,
Okay. Uh, I'll just start.
uh,
Oh,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna start
You do.
naming people then. Um, obviously you got like the big names. You get your John Coltrane. You get your Miles Davis. Get your I forgot what forgetting names. Uh, they're all in my head. I swear. It's just like in the moment when you need to think of names but you can't remember them. Uh, you name any big name, I've probably listened to and loved their music. Uh, m-
Actually, that's
wow.
kind of the thing for me. So,
Yeah.
like I've listened to Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock and uh, some Duke Ellington as well. So like I've only listened to like the surface level, like big name stuff really, and I like
Yeah, no,
their
that's
stuff.
fair. Um, Charles Mingus, Glenn Miller, uh, Irby Green, a lesser known trombone player, but I fucking love his trombone playing. Irby Green has one of the best trombone tones ever, and his big band
Mm.
stuff is it's just. Um, trying to see if I can find more people from around that time that played more like the classic jazz sound, but that wasn't too much of anything of like crazy subgenre. Um, you Count Basie that we talked about before, Stan Getz, Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock's more along the lines of fusion jazz, which we can talk about in a bit, and maybe not in too much detail for maybe obvious reasons. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, I've gone through a lot of the big names. These people were super influential. Dexter Gordon, Maynard Ferguson, Art Blakey, even some like vocalists at the time, like jazz vocalists. You get Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, Nina Simone. So many names. Louis Armstrong, George Gershwin. George Gershwin actually was closer to like the early stages of jazz before jazz became a thing. Um, but he was pretty influential in how jazz formed as well, along the lines of ragtime, but more towards like the composing side of things with like yeah. uh I mean really JJ Johnson, another personal favorite of mine because he's a trombone player and I play trombone. I listen to a lot of JJ Johnson
Mm.
in my time, as I do. Chick Corea, more fusion jazz, but he has some jazz stuff. Honestly, I could just go
All
on and
right.
on. Frank Sinatra, blah 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 blah. You get the idea. And I
Yeah.
haven't even talked about much of any uh, modern jazz out as well. Thelonious Monk, just to add another one in there. Yes, I've talked a lot. That's a lot of names.
Other jazz people.
and all very much worth a listen to if you're looking, if you're curious about jazz.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you end up finding the guy?
So good stuff. No, I think it was Herbie Hancock, but then I said
Ah,
it.
okay. I mean, I'll just like, yeah, we can talk about some of these new artists as well, because you get some of these classic jazz artists who do like what people know jazz to sort of be like. Um,
Yeah.
I really
How's
love the
the
experimentation of jazz.
how's the modern jazz scene going on?
I'm not too sure about the modern jazz scene actually. Like I know it's
Yeah.
like it's not as big of a thing as like the popular music of like the 50s and 60s anymore, but
Yeah, definitely.
I don't catch up with the modern jazz scene. I know some bands, but I don't know any like jazz bands that fully like, oh, we're pure jazz. Like it's mostly fusion
Yeah, I don't
jazz.
think many people are yeah
Yeah.
pure jazz anymore.
I mean, I'd like to be jazz
Yeah.
bands. No, there are. No, to be fair, there are like brass bands and well bands that like wind bands that play jazz style like Latin jazz bands and um, but they exist for more like performance. Like when you think about like bands that have that like perform not under like the local concert band or like the local jazz band, but people like
Yeah.
touring and stuff. I feel like personally that from what little I know that they are more towards like the modern commercialized experimental music side.
But that's kind of the thing though. Like they still want to evolve.
Mm,
You know, they want to make their own, just
yeah,
like the jazzes of old. So like you can't just do the old shit.
jazz
Like
really is just like
like
a history of evolution, which I love.
yeah.
I mean that's fair for most music, but when you talk about such a
Yeah.
big genre that's not just a subgenre like we've done in previous episodes, it's really cool to see.
Sure.
Um,
It's always evolving.
talked about just now Herbie Hancock, one of the pioneers in fusion jazz, alongside people like Miles Davis, Chick Corea, uh, Jazz, Weather Report, um,
Yeah.
Thelonious Monk, even, uh, just my jazz playlist is fucking massive. I have to scroll for so long, to find people. um,
You don't subcategorize.
so I actually,
You,
I
you
probably
blink.
should, shouldn't I? Okay, here's the thing.
And
I made this playlist a long time ago, and
yeah,
I didn't do it at the time because I just like added shit in. But if I try to organize all 600 songs now, that would be like a
it'll be
crazy amount.
so
That's a big task.
yeah.
Um, but yeah. But yeah, fusion jazz. Um, really. Some I
Cool
think
subject.
we touched on like the big names.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk like here's some Japanese big names of the '80s.
Go ahead. I'd love to hear
Cassiopeia,
some.
T Square.
Mm.
There's like one guitarist dude and a few more which I'm not recalling right now. But jazz fusion jazz uh, became quite a big deal in the early '80s in I guess the '80s in general,
Mm.
especially in the East, Japan and surrounding countries.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool thing. And but I guess their type of jazz fusion became more I guess poppy, not pop really, but more they
Rock.
became
Rock influences.
more rock, soft rock influenced,
Yeah.
and AOR and like eventually became the start of smooth jazz music.
Yes. And that is a whole other just fucking episode in itself, really. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
uh, fusion jazz. It was a lot of people trying to take on the influences of the time, like the popular music of the time, sort of with rock. That's like the main thing people talk about. But it's also when you look at Miles Davis and his really trippy fusion jazz sounds, like you hear in an album like Bitches Brew. Um, he specifically takes on the influences of like Jimi Hendrix, for example. He
yeah.
loved the psychedelic sound and brought that into jazz, and you get a specific type of fusion jazz that is unique to Miles Davis, really. Um,
Even I think some uh, Herbie Hancock's early style may have you even like influence like funk music.
yeah, that
I'd
is
say.
very true. And
So yeah,
there's a whole new rabbit hole there of how jazz influences
funk and
funk
disco,
and disco.
and then funk.
This going to
There's
influence
another
city pop.
branch. Yeah,
It's lost for words. I love jazz.
jazz very influential.
And at this point, uh, it's the time where I just feel like I am running out of things to say. So I just want to shout out some other people that I haven't already talked about. People like Kansas
For
Smitty,
sure.
a modern jazz band who get their name from the bar they play at, I think. Um,
Um,
and playing some really nice stuff. I really love Kansas Smitty's song. What's it? It's Riders. Riders. One of the more popular songs. Uh, Gordon Goodwin's Big Fat Band. It's been a classic for a long time. Um, and well, I'm not sure if the last time they released something was in 2020. Um, so I guess they're still active. I guess they tour a lot. I'm not sure. I just know that they are very nice. Um, uh, you get bands like Lucky Chops, Snarky Puppy, uh,
yeah,
these kind of people playing modern like fusion jazz that's more poppy. That sounds more like pop and more uh or not even like that. I haven't actually listened to Snarky Puppy all that much, but one of my friends
Saki.
was getting me to listen to Snarky Puppy.
They do a lot of like
It is just fusion jazz, actually. I take that back.
fusion jazz, funk kind of. They take from a lot of
Mm.
surrounding genres. I think.
Okay, so I take that back. Sorry, Snarky Puppy fans and my friend at uni. Snarky Puppy, that they are their own thing, more alongside the fusion jazz, I would
Yeah,
say. Bands like Lucky Chops, alongside like the No BS brass band, um, other like brass bands, you get that kind of I would include Moon Hooch in here, Broken Brass, that kind of brass band feel. Um, Brass bands are very popular right now, I would say. And
really.
yeah. Oh, I
We
was
need more
like very
brass.
popular in like the people that listen to brass bands will listen to brass bands.
Yeah,
Young Blood brass band to add another one in there. Uh, another
young
great one
blood.
in there. Um, oh, the name I forgot to mention in like the 70s and 80s era, Maynard Ferguson as well.
Mm.
So that's another one for the names. Uh, oh, Buddy Rich as well, another name I forgot I had in like the 70s and 80s eras. If I got my timings right, but Buddy Rich, a really famous drummer with his bands. My throat is starting to get like a little bleh.
Hydrate.
I do need to hydrate. In fact, I will do that right now. H2O.
You done that?
Delicious water. Um, Hot Potato Band goes alongside the brass band category. Um, Honestly, it's just a ton of stuff that I just love listening to. You could go on a rabbit hole inside like Spotify jazz playlists and just discover gems. That's what I did for the longest time. Just went through and stole a ton of Spotify playlist jazz songs for my own playlists. Jim Snydero, for a modern jazz artist, saxophone player who does some really nice jazz. Sort of, he likes to experiment with fusion jazz, in like the kind of like chaotic nature of it. But he also does a ton of great classic like cool jazz, slow jazz.
Right.
Yeah. And sort of, I also really kind of just wanted to touch on Miles Davis again, because his genre range is indescribable. He goes from like doing bebop to doing fusion jazz to doing like a rock fusion jazz to a psychedelic rock fusion jazz to doing like just like fucking chaos at times, which I also love. It's real trippy shit listening to those tracks. But I love them honestly. And then you get to like, he did an R&B song once, twice. I don't know. I listened to The Man with the Horn. I haven't listened to any other Miles Davis albums apart from like the 7 that I've listened to. I think I've listened to about 7 Miles Davis albums maybe. But his discography is just huge.
He keeps up with the times, man.
He really do be. But yeah,
Keeps on creating.
Great stuff. If you want to go have a listen, I do highly recommend. Okay, in terms of my recommends, go listen to like The Man with the Horn, Bitches Brew, A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. That album, one of the classics in jazz harmonies that people built upon. Obviously, if you don't know Giant Steps, you've been living under a rock if you haven't seen the memes, and you follow jazz even slightly.
It's the funny song.
It is the funny song,
Everyone.
but this is also the song where John Coltrane was like, "I'm just gonna make the most fuck offest saxophone solo you'll ever hear in the world, because my name is John Coltrane and no one is me."
It's good stuff.
I did some research back like 3 years ago in my vet course for sound production when I explored ska jazz. Explored bands like the Scatterlights. That sort of led down to how people have been using ska jazz and like reggae sounds and jazz to create music along the lines of like the Cat Empire and the Black Seeds, Bear Jams. But this sort of like this category, this, I wouldn't even call it a genre because it's just a category of bands that all have like this sort of like reggae, funk, soul, jazz, rock, popish sound combined in this mash pool of really great music that I love as well.
And that's a Jamaican American fusion.
Funnily enough, the nationalities of these bands: Cat Empire is Australian, Bear Jams is British, and the Black Seas is Kiwi.
These are all modern bands, right?
Very modern bands.
Yeah, but the origins would have been like, Jamaicans getting into jazz.
Absolutely. The Scatterlights are Jamaican, formed in like 30s, I think, 40s, 30s. I think they were formed in the 30s. Yes. No, I shall research this. It has been 3 years since I did this research. The Scatterlights. Never mind. It was the 60s. So they formed in the 60s, disbanded because one of the trombone player robbed a bank with his wife or something, and then they rebooted in the 90s.
Yeah, reggae was big in the 90s for some reason.
Mm.
Yeah, it was in the pop charts, I think.
Yeah. I mean, people like Bob Marley, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, I guess Bob Marley, I guess one of the, I guess, the perpetrators of that.
that's fair. Uh, I
Yeah.
wouldn't know honestly. You'd have to be telling me. But yeah, just fucking reggae did influence jazz in a lot of ways. I think. I'm not too sure,
Mm.
but I'm pretty sure that I do hear some reggae influences, and especially when it comes to ska jazz, because that is basically just reggae and jazz. And then people take
Now
that
I'm thinking
and
about
get
that.
even crazier stuff.
Now I'm just thinking about that reggae fart song.
Fuck off, man.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a
Uh,
juicy fat.
anyone who's watching this, search up reggae farts on YouTube and watch the first video. It's
You
great.
better run away. You better run away.
My favorite reggae track, honestly.
Honestly, no cap. Real shit.
Just like pure enjoyment factor, yes.
Fuck. Okay. No woman, no cry.
I like it. But like reggae farts really, it pulls emotions out of me.
Three little birds.
You get me? Like nothing else. Reggae farts still tops that.
Fair
This is like this
enough.
pure
Go
enjoyment,
on.
pure like emotional response kind of thing, man.
Yeah. Okay. You sure that's not just because you have nice childhood memories of farts?
I guess that might be a factor to it, but like, you know, it's not that like that song's no, it's not like reggae farts is a better song. It's more like the emotions I feel while listening to it, and the whole experience of listening to it is much more overwhelming
I was
than
like,
listening to any other reggae song.
I was face
Yeah.
palming there. Um, with the double effect of hiding a yawn.
Oh, nice.
Mm, I'm multitasking.
So yeah, search that song up,
Yeah,
guys.
go on. Just do it to please him so he can shut up. I don't mean it.
Thank
I
you.
love you, Dio. But
Love you too.
yes. Uh, another one I really wanted to talk about. Do we all know the game Cuphead?
I do know Cuphead.
Because Cuphead, bringing the nostalgia vibes to, well, if anyone's alive from that era, but the Dixieland vibes, the swing, the sort of like, and then you get like that classic sort of
That
Disney sound, I would
40s
say. This
cartoon
40s, yeah,
aesthetic.
that kind of aesthetic to the music. I guess it was 40s and 50s, right? Some 30s
Yeah, I think cartoons of that
cartoons.
type of thing were started in the 40s, I think.
Mm.
Well, maybe earlier because I remember.
I think
Do you know
earlier.
about the yeah? Do you know about the Donald Duck Nazi propaganda?
Yes, yes, I do know.
Yes, I think it's early actually. Yeah,
Disney did a lot of propaganda back then, didn't they?
yeah, yeah.
Um, history of cartoons. If I can spell history.
Like vintage cartoon vibes.
Yeah. Um. Wow. Can I actually get a date, please? Can I? Hello. Blah 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 blah. Can I please get? Okay. Well, I'm not gonna get a solid answer without more research, but no, definitely because you're hearing a lot of like I remember like watching like Mickey Mouse and stuff. Well, watching. It's more like seeing YouTube videos of people talking about it, where it's like you get like the ragtime piano sound in
Yeah, yeah.
cartoons of the time. Um, and from that, I would say you would get uh the and then after that it's like 40s. It's like you find jazz in cartoons, and then Cuphead comes along and it's like, we want to bring that back. Make hit you right in the feels with this one. And honestly, I just love the music of Cuphead so much. It's one of the few albums I would just be able to binge non-stop to. So good. I love it.
Yeah. Cuphead good.
I love how you're stroking your chin. Very nice. I'll
So you
stay
don't
clean
have a
shaven.
beard like me.
Schmexy. I've talked a lot. I've pretty much covered all my favorite jazz artists. Oh, I guess a jazz episode can't go without mentioning Whiplash, maybe?
Oh, good old Whiplash.
Because I have listened to some Whiplash music. Very good.
Actually, have not watched Whiplash.
I have not watched Whiplash either. I have just listened to some select songs from my friend's playlist.
I mean, isn't Whiplash just jazz standards?
Pretty much, but they have like original songs. No, I don't know. I forget. I don't remember if like the classic like Whiplash song is a standard or an original. Leave that in
But
the
I mean,
comments down below
Whiplash
for us.
is more about the drama
Yeah.
of being in a band with a
Well,
psychotic band leader.
yes, and while not being entirely accurate, it is still like yes.
I mean, it might be if you
Music
have
is good, I think.
someone insane, but I mean,
Yeah,
most people aren't really insane.
that is true.
Yeah. But a good movie apparently.
Well, if you want us to watch that, perhaps subscribe to the Unholy Trinity and come have a comment there or something. I don't know. If you've even watched this far into the episode, like, thank you. That is genuinely kind of flattering to me. Listening to me rant on about jazz.
I mean, if you don't have time, maybe we'll put this in the beginning. Put the video on like 2x speed. Then you can just go through it in 10 minutes.
2x speed. 2x speed
20
with
minutes.
how long we've been recording is 45 minutes. We've been recording for an hour and a half. We should wrap this up.
Damn, bro. This
Jazz
podcast lengths.
Have I told you about how much I love jazz?
You like jazz?
I like jazz. I don't know about you, but I like jazz.
Me too. Do you like the B movie?
I don't remember watching it really. I was too young. I probably wouldn't like it now. I'm sorry.
But it legit kind of funny though. I watched it.
Yeah, that is.
I think I
it's been too long. I just
rewatched
don't
it like
remember.
3 years ago, and I was like, "Yo, these jokes are kind of funny," and like, it's funny because it's somewhat self-aware as well. Like this is
Yeah. Okay.
not like this is not supposed to be serious kind of thing.
I trust your judgment. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I just don't know what I'm supposed to understand about it from all that I've heard. I'll be honest. All that I've seen. So
I think
don't know.
there's a cut on YouTube where it's like the B movie without bees. I think that's a good
Oh
summary.
yeah. I seen that video, but I haven't seen that video.
You can probably watch it. It's like 15 minutes
I
because
know, yeah.
the bees are in every scene.
The bees. It is way too
Anyway,
late for me. Yeah, I should
Mr.
probably go
Sandman
to
is
bed. Yeah,
and it's
but
been too long of an episode.
yeah, it's been way too long of an episode. Normally, I expect the episodes to go for an hour. I've been ranting about for an hour and a half about jazz by now, but so thank goodness you don't have to sit for any more of this. If you like this series, make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know. We're probably going to do something about jazz fusion in the next episode, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.